response team of Red Wing, which is a collaboration between the Anderson Center, Artreach, Red Wing Arts, the Sheldon Theater, and Universal Music Center. So I'm going to be talking with Lindsey about how she has been able to use social media to help generate sales online and gain an additional income stream for her artistic business.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. I think we're officially streaming live on Facebook and the webinar is live. For people who are joining us on the webinar, we were not able to get ASL interpretation for this, but we will be adding a transcript later. So I'll be working on the accessibility aspects. We are right now, we're just going to be Lindsey and I in conversation. There is a chat feature over, there's a chat button on the bottom of your screen that will pop that up, so you can go ahead and ask questions through that. But otherwise, Lindsey and I are just going to get started talking about what Lindsey has done with her artwork. So I'll turn it over to you, Lindsey, to talk about different platforms.
Sure thing. So I tried a few different platforms and I have tested a few different things. And I found that Instagram is my favorite platform, mostly because as a visual artist, it's a very visual heavy platform. Facebook is also a great place to share work online, just because the community on Facebook is really large. But I have found that Instagram is my favorite. There's also Twitter and Pinterest. TikTok is a new one, but there's also Patreon. But I'm mostly just using Instagram to share my work.
Great. And I think for most of our audience, they are going to be also maybe focused on, I know we have a lot of people in the Red Wing community who are pretty active on Facebook. And I agree with you that Instagram is a great platform for visual artists, and it's my personal favorite too. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit about Instagram, and then I'm going to address Twitter just briefly, because the Anderson Center has a large following in the literary community, and we know that Twitter is often used by literary folks. So tell us about Instagram.
Yeah, so Instagram is a great place to document your work and share visual works online. And it functions, it's like a grid portfolio or a grid profile, and I treat it like a portfolio. But it's also a space to share more than just finished works. I find that my audience has grown and people have become more active with my Instagram because I share works that are in process. And I share kind of the behind the scenes of my work. So I like to document my work in the studio. I'll take videos, I'll do time lapses, and then I'll share those directly on my Instagram, and people have really enjoyed watching the process of it all. And then when I finish a work, I'll share it. I'll share a photo, as good of a photo as I can get with my iPhone. And I'll share that on Instagram, and typically things sell pretty quickly. And then also Instagram has a feature similar to Facebook called Stories. And so you can share throughout your day. It's like a 24-hour time frame of little snippets of what you're working on, more videos of the process, or even research. I like to share articles that I'm reading, ideas that I'm thinking about, and also sharing other artists' work through my stories, so that you're kind of creating a network through the story platform of it.
Great. I can pull up your Instagram page, or do you want to do a screen share just so that our audience can see what that looks like?
Sure thing. Yes. Okay, I'll do a screen share.
And while you're getting that ready, I can talk a little bit more about Instagram from my perspective. It is pretty much a mobile app. There is a desktop version that you can, not a desktop version, but an online version that you can access through the cloud. But generally people are using this through the mobile application of Instagram running from their smartphones.
Right.
And the technology is moving so quickly that you can get really good images just from a relatively recent model smartphone. So you don't even have to have a nice camera outside of the phone that you already have.
Is it cool if I share a post of a time lapse real quick to show the process?
Great idea.
All right, so this is a post of me painting in the studio. And this is a time lapse that I took through my iPhone. And it's just basically like a 30-second clip of me painting. And people are really responsive to that.
So you're not just sharing finished works, you are sharing the process behind it. And people are getting to know not just the finished work that would be shown in a gallery, but they're getting to see your process as an artist and have an understanding of how you approach the work. I want to talk a little bit about audience too. Your artwork has a very specific message and a perspective. And so you aren't, what I've seen is that you aren't just talking to an art crowd, you are building an audience and building patrons and collectors around people who care about the issues that you care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think community is really important to me, even beyond my art making. As a queer person and a non-binary woman, I have been really connected to the LGBTQIA+ community. And I spent a lot of my time in undergrad working specifically with that community. So a lot of my artwork is informed by community building and representation and visibility for marginalized folks.
Awesome. And that could translate, for other artists in our community here in Red Wing, that might look really different. But I think what I want to encourage artists to think about is, who would be your audience and how can you connect with people who care about the things you do online. We did a show of photographs of wild horses by Deb Lee Carson at the Anderson Center in the fall, and had lots of people who were horse enthusiasts, and people were coming into the gallery who had riding stable jackets on. And Deb has a huge following on social media of people who care about the things that she does. And there are some good audiences around shared geography and landscape painting or photography. There are communities of photography enthusiasts online. So I would just encourage people to think about who their audience is and start seeking those people out through Facebook groups around shared interests, through maybe you're following, we'll talk about hashtags in a little bit, but maybe it's following hashtags that are things that relate to both your personal interest as an artist and to things that you care about as a person, which feeds directly into our artwork for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
I could talk about Twitter just a little bit because obviously Instagram is just one choice. It is a big platform for visual artists. So Twitter, for those who aren't familiar, is it's a word-based platform mostly. They do images, but it's primarily about text. And for a long time, there was a limit of 140 characters, which many writers found to be an interesting challenge to try to share something interesting in a very short amount of space. There's an affinity with poetry there. So I've just pulled up here the Twitter feed for Grey Wolf Press. You can see, you can comment, you can retweet, which is to just share something that someone's already shared, and you can like. So there's a lot of interaction here. You'll see these are called tags, where there's it's called a handle. It's the @ symbol and then your online profile. So this is Twitter, and you can see different authors interacting with their publishers and their publishers promoting the authors' tweets. So that's just a brief introduction to Twitter. I'm with Lindsey. I'm a visual artist, and my favorite platforms to engage with are Facebook and Instagram. So maybe I'll turn it back over to you to go into more of the nuts and bolts of Instagram.
Yeah, I think when you're sharing your work on any platform, Instagram, for example, it's really important that you document as much as you want to and as much as you can. And you post often as you want. There's no such thing as posting too much. I know that there are some folks with social media who might feel embarrassed to share work because it's new. But I think it's important to post and share your personal journey and experience and process. I also think it's important to document your work in a way that's high quality. I find that I have an iPhone 11 and that works great. The camera on that is good enough for me to share my work visually online. But I would just make sure that you are documenting it in a way where like it's not pixelated, it's not blurry. It's just a good way to share. I also think that numbers on social media can be intimidating, and don't get discouraged if you're not getting a lot of likes and if you don't have a lot of followers. Those things are irrelevant. What matters is that you are enjoying the process of sharing your work and you're proud of what you're sharing. And I think people love to see authenticity. They like to see the real stuff, the personal work, and that's going to generate sales. So when I get a sale through Instagram, I'll have people typically message me on Instagram and we'll DM about what kind of work they're interested in.
Let's talk about what DM stands for really quick.
Yes, DM stands for direct message. So on the Instagram platform in the top right corner, there's a little like arrow button and you click that and then it goes into your messages. It's very similar to a Facebook Messenger or a Twitter direct message messenger. So people will reach out to me saying they're interested in buying work. And it's usually based on something that I recently posted, which usually isn't available or has already sold. So I get a lot of commission-based work from Instagram, which is really exciting and great. So I think when you get a sale or somebody interested in your work, it's also really important to have a contract ready and to kind of take it from the Instagram platform and bring it into a more professional and safe place to work with somebody. So I'll typically get their email. We'll talk on Instagram, I'll get their email, and then I'll email over the contract, and then we'll continue conversation through email.
Great. You shared your basic contract with me earlier, and I thought it was a good example. Can we put that up on screen share really quick?
Sure thing.
And while Lindsey's doing that, I'll just take a chance to plug the next event of the artistic response team of Red Wing. Red Wing Arts is using their regularly scheduled Tuesday night Art Speak event to host Andy Sturdivant from Springboard for the Arts, and he will be talking about different professional resources for artists. Springboard is a great resource for things like contracts, and they are connected to volunteer lawyers for the arts. So if this is something that you are looking to develop for your own artistic practice, there are resources out there to help you put a contract together.
Awesome. Okay, so this is my commission agreement. So basically the beginning is just a little bit about me and my location, how to contact me. And then right here is where I put the buyer's information. So a name and an email address at least. And then going through this, the beginning talks about the price of the work, which you can determine yourself, but I think it's also really important not to undervalue your work, ask for what you believe your work is worth, which is really difficult for a lot of artists.
I agree with that. And I would just offer that I have a background in professional gallery work, and I'm always happy to talk to artists connected to the Anderson Center about what I might suggest they value their work at. I think there are other resources in town. So I would just encourage people to reach out and have conversations with other artists, talk to gallerists. It is really difficult to price your own work. Often there's a scale based on the size of the piece and the materials. But I agree with Lindsay that people tend to undervalue their work. And again, there are resources. If you are trying to figure out how to price something, reach out and let's talk about it.
Definitely. So based on the price of the work, well, regardless of the price of the work, I ask for a non-refundable fee of $100 upon signing this agreement. And that covers my time and material to do the brainstorming process with my clients and just prepare a proposal for them. So within 5 days of signing the agreement, I get a proposal ready, and then I email over a proposal, which is basically like a first draft of what the work would look like a study of what the work is and will become. And then from that proposal, they can make up to 5 changes. And then I take their changes, and within 5 days, they come back with a new proposal. But if they want to make more changes after that, then I ask for another $100. The first $100 comes from the price of the work. It comes right out of the price. And then if they want to make more changes, which is more time and more material, then I ask for more money. And then once the client agrees to the proposal, we move forward. But if they don't accept a proposal within 30 days of the presentation, then I just drop the job. I discontinue working with them. But then once they do approve the proposal, then I ask for 50% down, just because it's a big commitment and I want to make sure that this is worth the time. So they put down 50% within accepting the proposal, a 30-day or 30-day window. And then I typically complete the work within 45 days of the payment. And then once the work is finished, I ask for the remaining balance within 3 days of finishing the work. And then right here it talks about how the client will provide any photos or documents that would be inspiration for the work. So I have a lot of people that have given me poetry, photos to inspire the imagery of the work. And then down here, it's all pretty legal talk about how this agreement functions within Minnesota. They're responsible for Minnesota sales tax, Goodhue County sales tax, because I work in Goodhue County. They will cover insurance, shipping, and any storage of the work. And then a lot of copyright information here. And then basically I own any of the work that I make before the final project. So they can't take any of my like drawings and models and prep work. And then this is just like, in case this needs to go to court, this is really important information here. And then it's all governed in Minnesota state. So then you just date it and sign it, and it's good to go.
I think in some ways this is a pretty simple contract. You know, it's, 2 pages long?
Yep.
But it's also, from my perspective as an arts professional, it's a very professional contract. And if I, as a buyer or basically a client, got something like this, it only elevates you as a professional artist in my mind. This is, right. You've clearly done your research. I would encourage anyone out there who is a visual artist to look at the Visual Artist Rights Act that Lindsay's referencing in her contract. these are important questions around copyright and attribution, and it's impressive to me that you're thinking about them so early in your career, because many people don't when they're first starting out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to say before we switch over to talking about how you get paid through the internet?
The only other thing that I would say is related to the ways that artists can feel like embarrassed when they're sharing their work online. I think it's important that just kind of like let these intimidating feelings about social media kind of like go away and just share your work honestly. And don't be ashamed about like inviting your friends to follow your pages, growing your audience, using hashtags, connecting with new artists and new people on social media. I think it's just really important that you kind of just dive into it and don't feel embarrassment at all about what you're sharing and what you're doing.
Right, and the artists that I'm interacting with through social media, some of them choose to have separate pages for their personal life and their artwork, and others, Liz Miller from Mankato State is someone who I love. Her Instagram page and her personality really comes through it. It's both her artwork and her studio practice and photos of her husband and her dogs together, and other people want to have just a professional page that's focused on their artistic practice, separate from what they're sharing with their mother-in-law. And so I think that's totally up to each individual artist. But for anyone, if you choose to go that route of having separation, go in and invite all your friends to follow your artistic account too, and most of them will. And then reach out to any artist that you admire, especially in the region. Follow them and they might follow you back. There are people that I know what they're working on through Instagram who we don't necessarily talk in real life, but then I've gone and met them at art events and we can both say, oh, you know, I see what you're doing and I appreciate the work that you're doing because we're putting it out there.
Yes, definitely.
Let's talk about getting paid.
All right. So in my contract, I think Venmo is the most accessible form of payment for me, just because I have a lot of clients that aren't in the Red Wing area, and I typically have to ship work out. So it eliminates having to meet up or mailing a check, which is I just don't feel super comfortable about. So Venmo is a great platform to pay people and get paid.
Great, and that's VENMO.
Yes.
And I'm gonna switch over and share my screen.
Awesome.
So that we can look at that together. So this is the Venmo landing page. We can see that it's a service of PayPal. And it is like any other online account. You can see the fee structure here. There's different structures. Like any payment service process, they do charge a fee for what they do, just like all of our credit card processors charge a fee. I thought it was interesting that there's a $0 in-network ATM withdrawal. If I was using this professionally, I would want to go look at that network of ATMs and find out where they are. So I'm just going to go through the process here. We'll start making a fake Venmo account for the Anderson Center. What else do you want to say here?
I think that a lot of people that are new to Venmo, I think, have fear around it. And I think that I just would take time to get to know the program, because it's really been critical in the way that I've been paid as an artist. And I also think, if you I mean, if we're going to talk money, thinking about taxes, and thinking about when you are getting paid, make sure that you know, have an accountant, or, you know, keep up with your books and put the money away that you're going to need to. And I mean, I treat my Venmo account like a savings account, honestly, and I just like don't touch it. I just like let it exist. And that's really helpful because it's one of those things where like the money exists on this app, so it's kind of easy not to see all the time, and it's easy to save money and, you know, cover your butt when you need to later.
Right, and what you're talking about is also, I mean, again, I'm just impressed by your professional practices. You are thinking about the sales tax that you are required by law to pay, so there's no surprises there. You understand that this is income and it is taxable. I'm sure you're also keeping your receipts for things like
Yes.
buying paper and paint, because those are all deductible, and paying your studio rent. Those are all business expenses that count against any business income. It's interesting. I thought I would be able to go through here, but I've entered the Anderson Center's main landline, and it is doing the authentication process. I can screen share this again. So things are becoming more and more mobile phone based, and sending a code to a landline does not often work, especially a landline like the Anderson Centers, where we have multiple different options. When you call in, you can get different extensions for different staff members. So I think we're at a stopping point on the screen share on Venmo. But I want to piggyback off something that you said earlier. For some people who haven't done as much online, it is scary, and it is worthwhile thinking critically about what information you're sharing with what companies. PayPal is a pretty big company with a good reputation, and they are very interested in maintaining their reputation. So, you know, you're looking at the company behind the service, and we all share our credit information with Visa and MasterCard and all of our car and home loans if we have them. So it's a new way of doing it, and it's a new method. And you should certainly be thinking about the security of your internet networks. These aren't things you do in a coffee shop on an open network. Yeah. I've got a message here asking, is there value to Venmo versus receiving funds via text services from banks? How have you approached that in your own work?
That's a great question. I recently started banking with Wells Fargo, and I know that they have an application very similar to Venmo called Zelle, which I haven't started yet. I think the only value to me with Venmo, which is why I stick to Venmo, is that all of my clients have had it. And so it's like kind of the primary form of digital payment that I've run into. I've had some people pay me through PayPal, but Venmo just seems to be the most convenient and easy way for folks to pay me.
It's a good point. Things that are widely utilized are a lot easier to access. And there's 100 different options out there, probably more than that. Certainly people are selling online through Etsy and other platforms. I think part of why I wanted to introduce Lindsey's way of working is that I think this is very accessible at the ground level. You haven't built a custom website. You don't have a fancy vendor account set up somewhere, but you're using really common basic platforms that are really widely available, and you're having success selling your work. But those pieces of good professional business practices, having contracts and thinking about sales tax, those are things that Springboard can help us with, and we'll be hopefully talking about some of that in Tuesday night's streaming episode of the Artistic Response Team with Red Wing Arts Speak program.
I also wanted to say that as far as like using a platform that's widely utilized, is like, that goes back to my audience as well, and accessibility. And my work, you know, it doesn't have like I'm not represented by a gallery yet, you know. I'm kind of at this level where it's a very DIY, and my audience and the people that buy my work are also people that aren't familiar very much with the art world, I guess, because it's so focused on community and marginalized folks. So Venmo is just like a really accessible platform for those people as well.
Awesome. I'm scrolling through our notes here, thinking about what else we want to talk about. We had pulled up a couple of Instagram accounts of people who are connected to different communities, just to show how that looks different. And then we should talk about hashtags and what they are.
Yes. Do you want to screen share, or
yeah. I will, yep. Okay, so this is Chris Rackley's Instagram account. He is another artist who is in the portrait show that just came down at the Anderson Center. He's based in Rochester, Minnesota. And Chris is very, very active on Instagram. He does a lot. You can see that there's a variety of content here. This is documentation of a finished work up at the Rochester Art Center. These videos are promoting a sale that happened. There's a lot of audio on that one. Promoting a sale that happened this winter in Rochester. But then he's also thinking about practice in terms of just the physical act of making the work. So you see photos of his studio and things that he's doing behind the scenes. He does a lot of digital work. So there are cute animations that were made for Halloween. I think for me as a practicing visual artist, the idea of sharing the behind the scenes stuff is intimidating. But it's really successful. It can just serve to show even more of the craft and the skill that goes into the work. It reminds people that there's a real person behind this who is making by hand the thing that they're buying and serves to add value to the product you're selling.
Definitely.
And I will say there is, you get on Instagram, you get one website to put here in your profile that gets actively linked to. So people who have websites are able to direct traffic to other parts of the internet.
Yeah, that is super helpful.
And then we talked about Leslie Barlow in Minneapolis, who is also in an exhibition that just came down from the Anderson Center. So here is a commission that Leslie is working on. So you see her process. She is describing in the caption, you know, you're looking at a red underpainting and one layer of oil paint. So she's describing how she makes the work and what goes into it. And she's also mentioning that that is a commission. So even by saying this is a commission that I'm working on signals to your audience, like, hey, you could commission me to paint a portrait of you and your family as well.
It is beautiful. I also wanted to share an artist that recently graduated from University of Wisconsin Stout. Her name is Emily Gordon, and she has been getting a lot of traction with, before the pandemic, she had some artist residencies lined up. But she has a great Instagram that kind of functions as a portfolio. So this is her page, and she has her website here in this website link box there. And then you scroll down and it's all images of her work in gallery settings, and then also some like interactive works, in process works. And then she also owned a gallery in Menominee that recently closed due to COVID-19, but it's just very much like a personal sharing of her work as an artist. So I think it's beautiful.
Great. Are there some hashtags there we should look at and talk about hashtags?
Yeah. Let's see. I know a good one is artists of Instagram, if you're using the Instagram platform. I'll screen share this real quick. So if you go up to the search bar on Instagram, you can type in artists of Instagram, and then this pops up right here. And it's a hashtag.
Which is literally that pound sign from your phone dial pad.
That's literally all you need to do. And then you can put, multiple words into one. It's like a thread of words connected to this pound sign. But you can follow, which I will do now. And then when you are going through your own feed, these hashtag posts will come up without needing to follow a specific page. Mm-hmm. But you can see artists' work. There's a variety of different artists using this hashtag. And then you can find new artists to follow based on that. See, like this was posted 57 seconds ago, and I can be the first person to like it. So that's how cool that hashtag is.
Great. And I'll screen share a local artist. Debly Carson has a really big following on Instagram, and you can see all of the hashtags. So there's a lot here. She's tagging for horses and people who are interested in horses. She's tagging for black and white photography, Nikon photography, and different things like that. And so when I want to go to the Anderson Center's Instagram page, when I want to go find hashtags, I go look at similar organizations. If I'm looking for local hashtags, we've got Driftless Minnesota, Driftless Region, tagging for geography here. Sometimes I do a better job than others. But MN Artists is one that people in Minnesota often use. The hashtag #WIP stands for work in progress, and that's a popular one. I will say that it's important to use it's called their handle, but obviously attribution is as important in a digital space as it is in print media or other things, that artists might get mad at you if you share their work without tagging them in it. So that's good etiquette for online work, is to always point back to the person who made the piece originally. Mm-hmm. I think we've covered most of the things. You were going to talk a little bit about the phone application that you use to edit your photos to make sure they look good online.
Mm-hmm. So I use an app called Visco, VSCO. But it's very similar to what you would find in your own photo app. If you go to a photo on your phone, there's like a little edit button in the top corner. It's very similar to those functions. But VSCO I use because it's another way for me to document my work as well and just kind of keep like edited photos in one place. So VSCO, you can just go, they have filters as well that you can use, but I stay away from those unless I'm posting like a selfie or something. But you can edit the exposure, contrast, saturation, color, and I just make sure that whatever I'm posting online is reflective of what I'm seeing in real life, and the color is accurate. And I just think that's really important when you share your work, is that it's an accurate representation of the work.
Absolutely. I'd like to open it up for questions if there are some. There's a couple different ways to ask questions. The easiest way is through the chat box. So anyone who's participating online, there is a chat button at the bottom of your screen, and you can type messages in there. I think that's the easiest way, because otherwise, bear with me folks, this is our first Zoom webinar. Otherwise, we are adding everybody to the live streaming screen. While I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions they want to ask the two of us, I will just say thanks to people who are joining us. We are recording this. It is also streaming live on Facebook in addition to the Zoom webinar platform. And it will be archived for future reference. And we will work on getting either a transcript or some captions up so we can ensure better accessibility. This is we introduced the artistic response team of Red Wing to the public on Tuesday night. It is now Friday morning, and we're moving really quickly to try to get resources out to our artist community in Red Wing, and since it's streaming on the internet, really to anybody who needs to access these resources right now. The artistic response team of Red Wing is a collaboration between the Anderson Center, Artreach, Red Wing Arts, the Sheldon Theater, and Universal Music Center. And I really appreciate Lindsey being available to share her skills and background with other artists. I am so appreciative of the relationships that I have with artists and the way that they have helped me throughout my career. I think that artists working together to help each other understand how to do this. It takes creativity to make a career in a field where there isn't a really set path where you show up and work a 9 to 5 and get a paycheck every 2 weeks. But the resources are out there, and we as the artistic response team of Red Wing and I through the Anderson Center are here to help connect our local artists with those resources so that we can all work on generating the multiple income streams that it takes to sustain your individual practices as artists, and which are key to sustaining the vibrant arts community that we enjoy in this community of Red Wing. So thank you, Lindsey. Thank you to everyone who joined. I will work on figuring out how this gets archived online and share that out, and feel free to reach out to me with follow-up questions, and we'll do our best to continue sharing resources with the community. Thank you for your time, Lindsey, and we'll see you online soon. Go follow her. Tell everybody what your handle is.
My handle is Lindsey Cherek, my name, LINDSEYCHEREK. And you can also reach me at my website, lindseycherek.com. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thanks, Lindsey. Take care, everybody.
Bye.